everybody, in today's video we're going to be providing an overview of how to perform a SWOT analysis as well as what a SWOT analysis entails in under 4 minutes. So let's begin. With what is a SWOT analysis? Well, SWOT stands for Strengths, Weaknesses, Opportunities and Threats. And a SWOT analysis tool is a strategic planning tool that provides a comprehensive overview of an organization's internal strengths and weaknesses, as well as external threats and opportunities. Threats and opportunities exist within the environment of an organization, whereas the strengths and weaknesses exist internally. So, when are SWOT analyses performed? They are typically performed on organizations that are attempting to identify areas for improvement, and they are particularly beneficial whilst being used to inform decision-making and organizational strategy. Beginning with strengths and weaknesses. So strengths and weaknesses are the first part of a SWOT analysis, and as I said, they are internal to the organization, and this means that they are controllable. Strengths are the positive attributes and characteristics that provide an organization with their competitive advantage. These are areas where the organization typically excels or possesses an abundance, typically in resources such as personnel, money, or something of this nature. Comparatively, weaknesses are the factors that place an organization at a competitive disadvantage against their competitors. These are areas where the organization is typically lacking or facing challenges. And you can see below that I provided some examples of what strengths or weaknesses could pertain. Moving on to opportunities and threats. As I mentioned again, these are external to the organization and almost always are uncontrollable. And that means that the organization can merely respond to these threats or capitalize upon these opportunities. Opportunities themselves are factors and conditions that organizations can leverage and exploit in order to achieve its strategic objectives and enhance performance. Whereas threats are factors that may present risks or challenges for the organization that could impede its performance or pose obstacles against its success. And as you can see below, I provided some more examples as to what these could include. Okay, so now we're going to discuss an example SWOT analysis using Apple Incorporated. So, as we can see here, Apple has got a range of strengths, such as their strong, iconic brand identity. They've got a seamless product ecosystem, which is well integrated across all of their product devices and services. And we can see this with their Mac, their iPad, their iWatch, the iPhone. They are all integrated into one seamless platform, and this is a great strength of the organization. Now, Apple also has got a good financial strength due to their incredible size, which allows for substantial investments in both research and development, and they have a global retail presence, which ensures that they have got constant consumer access and brand visibility. However, Apple does have weaknesses, so they have got a high product price, and this limits their market share, particularly amongst price-sensitive demographics. Apple has also got a closed ecosystem, so you can see here that the product ecosystem was considered as a strength, but it can also be considered as a weakness because it limits the compatibility of Apple with non-Apple products and services, which alienates potential consumers. So what I'm essentially conveying here is that just because a company has got a particular strength, that strength can also be interpreted as a weakness. And when you are performing a SWOT analysis, it is okay to do this. If you find that a particular product is strong for the company, it can also be interpreted as a weakness, such as the product ecosystem. Apple also faces legal and regulatory issues, particularly due to their large unethical supply chain and intellectual property disputes. And Apple lastly has a dependency upon one product, and that is the iPhone, which exposes Apple to a heightened amount of risk if there is volatility within the smartphone market. Now, moving on to opportunities and threats. These I always try to base upon the strengths and weaknesses that we identified within the organization. So we can see here that if Apple is limited in their ability to target particular demographics, then they could potentially expand into emerging markets, because emerging markets are characterized by massive increases in wealth and thus consumer purchase power. So if Apple wants to target the upper echelons of society, then they can go into emerging markets where these people exist in increasingly large numbers. Apple could also enter service and subscription revenue services. They could expand upon their Apple Music, TV, or arcade offerings. And you can see here that this opportunity is not actually linked to any of the ones listed above, any of the strengths or weaknesses. And this is because opportunities do not always have to be related to the strengths and weaknesses of the organization. Rather, you can identify a weakness or a potential opportunity, you can identify an opportunity within the external environment and then suggest that the company capitalizes upon this. It does not have to relate to the strengths and weaknesses, but it is always beneficial when you can identify potential weaknesses or potential strengths that can be improved further and suggest this to an organization. So yes, they don't have to be based upon strengths and weaknesses. And you can also see here that Apple can leverage their favorable financial positioning to improve the supply chain ethicality and resolve legal disputes. Now here is a perfect example of how I have identified a strength, being their financial strength. You can see that I've said they can leverage their favorable financial positioning, and then they can use this strength to target a weakness. So you can see that I have said they can improve their supply chain ethicality and resolve legal disputes. Now this relates to their weakness here. So you can see really how the SWOT analysis can come together. You can draw upon the strengths and weaknesses identified and then propose opportunities as a consequence of this. However, not every situation can be an opportunity, and sometimes there are just simply threats. Now, one threat could be an international geopolitical tension or natural disasters, and these can be incredibly threatening to Apple's complex global supply chain. Here, you can even suggest a further opportunity. So Apple, having a complex global supply chain, could in fact localize their supply chain. They could participate in deglobalization. And in doing so, they would be limiting their risk and thus reducing the threat. So I hope that you have found this example useful, and now we're going to move on to a summary. So to summarize, SWOT stands for Strengths, Opportunities, Weaknesses, and Threats. SWOT analyses are strategic planning tools that provide comprehensive overviews into an organization's internal and external environment, typically when conducting decision-making or planning organizational strategy. Strengths and weaknesses are internal and thus controllable. The organization can directly influence these, whereas opportunities and threats are external and thus usually uncontrollable. The organization cannot directly control these, and they can simply respond to the threats and opportunities. So if you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out a whole lot with growing our channel. And in the next video, we will be discussing disruptive innovation. Thank you very much, and I'll see you then.